2 of the Romford Film Festival, and I'm very excited to have some amazing filmmakers with me. What a great bunch of shorts we just watched. So many diverse, different stories, really strong, really well made, really powerful. So let's introduce ourselves. What's your name, sir, and what film are you from?
I'm Stephen Smart, and I directed Marrow.
Amazing. And yes, you, sir?
Nicholas Cole, I directed Reservoir.
Lovely stuff. And
I'm McGovern, I directed They Don't Leave.
and this is...
And I'm Cato, Hoeben, I did the music for They Don't Leave. I'm here for moral support.
So I always kind of start with the same sort of opening question to get us into it. How did the premise of your film come to you? What was it all about? What was the idea? What were you hoping to achieve with the film? So I'll start with you, and then I'll kind of ask the same question to everybody.
Yeah. It really all came to me in a nightmare one night, and I think like years ago I had cancer, which is what the film was about, one way or another. So every 6 months I have these scans where they check to see if it's come back or not. And as I approach those scans, I get very anxious, and I start to have nightmares about it. So I had this nightmare that this demon was coming into my house and that it was going to steal my dog. So that's where it came from.
Goodness me. And such a powerful, visceral representation of cancer, I suppose, in the person of the demon. Fantastic. And what about you, sir?
Mine started from wanting to make a horror film in the daytime. It's my second short. My first short was set at night, so I just wanted to make something in the daylight. And then I watched a trailer for a folk horror film. No, I watched a folk horror film, In the Earth, by Ben Wheatley. And that kind of inspired me to make something involving kind of like a rock and runes. And then it all kind of became kind of a bit eco, a bit environmental, I guess. I've lost my train of thought. It's a lot
No
of
problem.
Yeah, it came from wanting to make a film in the daylight, and then I saw the trailer and then the film In the Earth, and I kind of had a picture in my head of what I thought the film would be, and the film turned out to be completely different to what I imagined. And this is kind of my film is what I kind of imagined that film would be, almost. Yeah.
Amazing. And what about you? How did the premise come to you?
I mean, I guess it was two things. One, I was very messy in my 20s, and I kind of wanted to make a film about what it means to take responsibility for yourself and to own trauma in a way. You know, as adults, we're not really, what happened to us as children isn't necessarily our fault, but we are responsible for, owning ourselves and making something out of ourselves. And Hereditary had just come out, and I loved that film so much. And I wanted to shoot something, not necessarily a similar story, but something with a similar aesthetic. And it actually didn't turn out that way, but that was part of the motivation when I wrote it.
I think that's so often the case. You also said, didn't you, that the film didn't quite turn out as you had pictured it, but you make something else that's wonderful in the process.
So I'm the composer, so I can't talk about it.
I suppose, what was your premise for the music then? And how did that come to you?
To be honest, it's just working quite closely with Kaz to try and get the kind of the sensitivity right, as well as there's quite a few emotions that happen in They Don't Leave, so you've got to kind of be sensitive to the subject matter, which is obviously quite a serious one, but also get a bit of the emotion going at times and stuff. It was quite an eclectic score, so having to kind of switch between it was quite challenging.
Fantastic. And I'm always interested in hearing about the process of how you actually make the films when you're in the middle of actually making them, and what the kind of main challenges were and how you attempted to overcome them. I think sometimes budget can be a challenge at this sort of, we're all kind of at the low budget end of filmmaking, and sometimes that can present a real challenge in itself. So what was the main challenge that you would say you faced?
It is definitely there's so many things you would want to do. Like visually in my head when I see the demon, it's like, doesn't exist in reality, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not visible. And I would need like special effects to render that. So you sort of have to compromise on everything, you know, costume and location and everything. The biggest risk to the whole movie was when we got to the woods. We were driving in like a large minibus, and it was too tall to enter the car park.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was almost a disaster. But luckily, they were there to let us in.
Good stuff. And what about you?
I think because it was quite low budget, so getting kind of cast and crew. But luckily, I'm my job is I'm a camera technician at a rental place in Manchester. So I've met people over the years, become friends with them. So managed to get like a good crew together. But the main challenge was in my head when I wrote the script. It was super bright and super sunny, but being in the north, it rained immediately the first day of the whole day. So the challenge was the weather and trying to match in the edit, because we didn't shoot chronologically, trying to match the scenes to the right weather. But it worked out well, because we managed to do all the rainy stuff for the first day of the film. Then the second and third day of the film, it was sunny. So we kind of narratively made it work. But yeah, definitely the weather was a challenge because it was properly raining.
You were outdoors in the elements for the whole thing.
Yeah, for the whole thing. And on the first day, we shot all day in the rain, and then the exterior tent stuff at night, we stayed in the woods until about midnight, 1 a.m. to get all the nighttime stuff, and we decided to shoot the interior tent stuff on location as well. So all that was in the dark and the rain in the woods. Yeah. But I think it worked. I think it looked better than doing it in like a studio or a room.
It looked fantastic, and I love the
worth
commitment to like sleeping in the woods for
Yeah,
this film.
definitely worth it.
The main challenge, we were supposed to start shooting in April of 2020, and then obviously, you know, COVID happened. And so keeping the momentum going was the main challenge. The actual shoot was pretty drama-free. We didn't really have any issues. Obviously, post-production was a bit more challenging, just because, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but like filmmaking is kind of just self-imposed problem solving. Like it's really just problem after problem. But yeah, the actual shoot itself was pretty smooth.
I'm glad to hear it. And did you encounter any challenges with the scoring process?
Well, I mean, working on a small budget, obviously you have to think carefully about where you're going to spend that money.
Yeah.
So the priority was always going to be live streams. But with music and sound design, particularly with this, you know, with any kind of horror film or any kind of thriller, music's really important. You've got to get it right, as well as sound, because it can kind of make or break a film. I know I'm biased, but it has a big influence. But at the same time, you can be quite creative and work within small budgets. So I think in that respect, it's probably harder in other aspects of filmmaking to kind of have to cut back. You'll kind of notice the quality difference quite a bit. If you focus on certain things in music, then you can really make the score stand out and kind of economize on the rest of the score. So being experimental, recording a cello. I don't play cello, for example, but sampling it and messing around with sounds and coming up with some sound design was part of the score. It allows you to do that within a small budget, so it's a bit more flexibility.
Well, I think it absolutely worked, and it was a stunning score and very, very powerful. I'm going to open it up to the audience in just a moment, but before I do that, I just want to ask what your aim was in making the film, and like, did you have a message you were trying to get out? Were you trying to say anything with the film? Do you feel you succeeded in that aim? I mean, perhaps you've met like audiences here that have seen the film at different festivals. Have you had a warm response? Yeah, what do you feel you achieved? What were you trying to achieve?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, so half of it was just me dealing with my own anxiety problems, but then I wanted to make it more general. So it's sort of, I tried to aim for the question of, what does it mean to be a good person or a good friend? And if you're the kind of person who, you know, doesn't donate blood or wouldn't get tested for bone marrow to donate to their cancer-stricken best friend, are you a good person, or is that like irredeemably bad? Because I've never given blood in my life, so I feel kind of guilty about that, because I'm the kind of person who might, you know, need medical assistance, need, you know, blood bank, like those kind of things, but I feel like I never get back. So it was sort of me trying to like argue that point between the two characters, and I didn't try to like make a decision in the end either way. I'm still sort of undecided on what that means, but I guess I was posing the question to the audience of, do you think he's a bad person or not? Because he's kind of selfish and neurotic, and yeah.
Absolutely, exploring the moral dilemma.
Yeah.
you inspired conversations, do you think?
This is the first time any of my work's been screened to the public, so
Oh,
I have no idea.
screaming! Oh my goodness. Well, we loved it. So we're off to a very positive start. And what about yourself? What were you hoping to get out into the world with the film?
At the start, it didn't really have a direct message. It was, again, just wanting to make something scary in the daytime. But then, as I got further into the premise, it kind of became a bit environmental, I guess, a bit eco. When I came up with the idea of her testing soil for pollution, then it became very much about what would happen if the earth took back from the people that are polluting it, I guess. And that's where the idea came from of the cult members and like the rock, and at the end the flowers wrapping around her is like her being dragged back into the ground, and that's why narratively the weather worked out, because at the start it's very grey, very rainy, and then when she cuts her finger on the rock, that's when the weird stuff starts happening, and then as the film goes on it gets sunnier and brighter. And in the sound design with my sound designer, we took out, I'd say like 95% of any kind of wildlife noise. So it's like, you might not notice it the first time, but on the second time there's no bird song or anything, or no anything other than kind of wind and ambience. And then towards the end of the film it gets a bit more in, and then at the end, when the main character unfortunately is dead, then that's where there's loads of birds and things, and it becomes really sunny and bright. So that was what it ended up being.
Fantastic.
Whether it worked, I don't know.
Lovely attention to detail.
You did? Yeah. Oh, amazing. Then it worked.
You've got one fan at least. And what were you hoping to achieve with your film?
I guess if just hoping people feel seen in some way or another. And I don't know, for survivors to know you're not alone and that you have options in your life, I guess. And on a more base level, just something that's entertaining and that like people will walk away with something, you know? Yeah.
I think you definitely achieved that, and it was definitely a very entertaining watch. Would anyone else in the audience like to ask a question to our panelists?
Come on, don't be shy. Let's see if I
Is that Chris?
Oh, right. Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Great movies. What scene or shot are you most proud of?
Great
That's
question.
For me, it's probably when she screams back at the demon in the climax, because that wasn't in the script, and then I was sort of thinking about what would David Lynch do, and having her scream like right in the camera, and then the actress just absolutely killed it. I was very pleased with that.
I've got two. My personal favourite shot is her looking down at the rabbit, and because that's kind of like my Shining reference shot, and the clouds happen to like kind of circle around her head, and there's some nice lens flare. And then the last drone shot, it wasn't planned, but as it got to the top of the shot, I realised that there was like a path going from north to south and east to west that made like a cross, and she was like right in the middle. So it looked like it was planned. It wasn't, but it was planned. So those two.
There's a shot at the end when she's at the bonfire and it's a close-up of her eye, and the bonfire's in her eye. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think that end sequence is my favourite as well.
Stunning. Were there any further questions?
Yeah,
There's
on the right.
a hand there. There's a hand.
Very excellent, guys. My question is for Nicholas. So the bunny man, what was like the backstory behind him, and where did that idea come from?
It's a funny one because it was two reasons. The main reason was I didn't want any of the cult members to be like a person or recognisable as a person. I wanted them to be like anonymous figures. So when they're really far away, it's kind of easier to do. I played two of them. So in the ones with the long hair, I just put the hair in front of my face. So I didn't want any faces to see. But in that shot, I wanted them to be very close. And to do that, you would just see who it was. You just see it was just kind of a person, which I wanted to avoid. So then the rabbit mask kind of came from referencing back to the dead rabbit that she saw. the dead rabbit was foreshadowing what's going to happen to her. It kind of, the earth got to a point where it's taking back any living thing regardless of what you are. So I kind of picked the rabbit to be the dead creature because that's kind of a sign of, you know, like spring and life coming. So it was reversing, taking life away. So then that's how the rabbit mask came about, and then it just looked really creepy as well.
So let's see one more question.
I think there was one, there's a hand there.
Yeah.
On Reservoir, how did you like the outdoor scenes?
How did I like it, did you say, sorry?
Yeah.
I wish my DP was here. All the daytime stuff, we didn't really have any lights. It was all natural. We just had like a poly, like a bounce. We used that for a lot of the close-ups. And then at night time, we used an Aperture 600D LED light, but it's like a mini generator almost. It's called an Instagrid, and it's like a 12K battery basically that you can run lights from, and it's portable. You just need to charge it. So we used one of them when we were outside, and we had an Aperture 600D to light the woods at the back. And then we had an one or two Aperture MT Pros, which are kind of like small long rectangle LEDs for the interior of the tent. And I used LED in the lantern as well. So it was only three lights to do the exterior stuff, and we only used 3 lights, but it was the generator that helped. Without that little portable battery generator thing, we wouldn't have been able to do it. Yeah.
Were there any other questions in the room?
I think that's it.
Right.
I think we're good.
Great. Well then, just to round up, hopes for the future. So you're all stunning filmmakers with so much talent. What are your hopes, first of all, kind of for these films, and also going forward? Are you all plotting feature films next, or what are you hoping to kind of, your filmmaking journey, where do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to make a feature film. I mean, Marrow to me, like narratively, could be a feature film,
Absolutely.
but I haven't actually written it, so I'm sort of, I'm trying to work on more lighter stuff at the moment. I'm trying to write a comedy.
I've got a couple of horror shorts written that I'm probably going to try and self-fund in the future, but I've just submitted an application to the BFI Short Film Fund to try and make a sci-fi drama. So try and get some funding for that. So yeah, I've just got three different kind of shorts that I want to try and get off the ground. So another short for me, I think.
Fantastic, and fingers crossed for the BFI
hopefully.
coming through.
I've been working on my screenwriting portfolio and trying to sell my first feature-length script at the moment.
And what about your music, sir? What are you hoping to take that?
In terms of where I want to go with it, I mean, features are always the way forward for me. I've done a lot of documentary work, and I did a feature recently, which was actually a BFI funded one. But I think in terms of working with Kaz, the next stage is hopefully to work on the feature. If not, maybe we can get another short out there and progress from there. Really.
Well, can I say that I wish you all the best of luck with your futures, and thank you so much for showing us those fantastic, really, really amazing films, and we all very much enjoyed it. So can we have a round of applause, please?